Yo, what's up, Pat?
How y'all doing?
Yeah,
Very
good.
good.
Good. Yeah, I was talking to Johnny. It should be an exciting one. We've got some big updates here, of course. So, yeah, it'll be good.
And the list, lots going on right now. Exciting times.
Absolutely. Okay, now it's 6:03. I think that's a good time to start. So everybody else who's still trickling in, we'll just have to follow from there. Yeah. So to kick us off, I think the biggest news should go first. And I think the biggest news here for the community app call is certainly the Coinbase listing. So Jeff or Pat, whoever of you wants to take it away, tell us a little bit about the Coinbase listing and what it means for ResearchHub and maybe also the community.
Jeff, you want to take it?
Yeah, definitely can hop in this one. So, yeah, the Coinbase listing is a super exciting one for us. I think, obviously, outside of what the conventional things that Coinbase, things like sort of better liquidity and like the ability for more access for people to trade. It's a venue, very trusted venue. So it's definitely gives you a sense of credibility. If you're a token that's trading on there, which is something that from an academics perspective, certainly exudes a lot more confidence in the project when people see something like that. A lot of people who are not in crypto sort of see Coinbase as the beacon of credibility and trust. So from that perspective, it's been, I think, really great, really exciting. One other thing that we've been sort of limited by, and I'm sure Pat can touch on this one more, is just the ease of access to the token for people to use it for its intended use, which is on the platform. So, we had some funders who've come in the past and have expressed, a commitment to put in, say, $1 million of research. DMT Quest committed $1 million of research coin to put towards funding. But the process to getting to that $1 million of research coin was not very easy. It required a ton of hand holding. I want to shout out Tyler in the audience who did a lot of that kind of hand-to-hand combat. And it just required a lot of bandwidth and processes and steps that someone who's not in crypto wouldn't be able to do. So one huge benefit, I think, of having research coin available on Coinbase is there's these really kind of easy APIs and widgets that can be used on the platform to, without anyone having to really think about it, be able to use debit card or Apple Pay or your Coinbase account directly on researchhub.com to click, hey, I want to buy $1,000 of coin, and just go and start using it. And I think that's what I'm most excited for with it, is the everyday person who just says, I have my bank account and I have my debit card, and they want to use research coin on the platform, have an easy way to actually go and do that. So lots of logistical things it unlocks as well too.
Okay, Pat, do you have stuff to add here?
I think Jeff nailed it. I mean, obviously, there's great attention that comes with the Coinbase listing and a lot of legitimacy too. And then on top of that, yeah, it just makes the token a lot more accessible to the folks who want to use it. And, I'm sure everybody here uses Uniswap. It's very challenging at times and can be a pretty big sort of a mental barrier for a lot of folks, especially sort of more conservative nonprofit institutions that fund science. So fortunately, Coinbase has done a lot of good work when it comes to making the UX of buying crypto a lot simpler. And most of these organizations already have a Coinbase account. So it makes it a lot easier for them to sort of swap into Research Coin and then use it on the site. So excited to see, what this unlocks over the next couple of months here, bringing in some more funders to the funding feature on ResearchHub.
Okay, very nice. So the accessibility is especially important here for the large amounts of research coin that funders are spending. That's what I'm hearing. I think that covers this topic, so we could move on to another update. So the token burn proposal that's still live. Jeff, can you introduce us to the proposal and maybe also tell the people what they need to do if they still want to vote on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So a really exciting proposal went live. And so for anyone who doesn't know, because there's a range of people who are very familiar with crypto and then some who don't. So for everyone who's not familiar, one benefit of using kind of a digital asset on ResearchHub and having our own digital asset, so rather than using USDC, for example, we use ResearchCoin. And one of those reasons is the people who hold research coin, so the token holders, can help govern certain aspects of the platform or the protocol. And this is sort of a strength because we feel like certain parts of science should be sort of more kind of operated by or decided by the scientific community. And so as a research coin holder, which oftentimes are the people who are earning it through the platform, showing their commitment to the platform, have a right to vote. And one of those votes recently is this ability to burn the transaction fees that the Research Foundation earns through the platform. So this is live on a site called Snapshot. There was a tweet by the ResearchHub Foundation maybe 10 minutes ago linking out to it. So I would encourage everybody to go take a look at that, read the short proposal, and vote. When you vote with your tokens, you don't forfeit your tokens. You just have equivalent voting power to however many tokens that you have. So if you have more tokens, you have kind of more governance rights in that. So I would encourage everyone to vote. The kind of strength of this is that we have a decentralized community that can sort of help govern the direction of some of the aspects of the platform. So the vote itself is, again, a burn on transaction fees from the ResearchHub Foundation. And so this really helps like anchor and frame the foundation more as like a kind of neutral community first protocol, rather than like sort of like a prototypical rent seeking kind of organization that is just like extracting from like some of the fees there. And it's much more aligned with more of like the community values. So yeah, that's the gist of it. Yeah, again, it's a very short proposal, about 30, probably take 30 seconds to skim through it. So yeah.
Okay, I shared the tweet here up here in the space, so you can take a look there and click on the link. I think you have 3 hours left, more or less 10 minutes less than 3 hours. So you can read it and vote in ample time. Yeah, I think that moves us to our next agenda point here. So I have here an announcement and maybe a teaser of like PsyCon, and PsyCon we host that every year. So PsyCon 2025 is now in its early stages. Jeff, what can you tell us about PsyCon so far?
Yes, so the PsyCon, we started just like really, really early kind of outreach. It'll be at the end of the year this year. And we've got some very exciting names that are already sort of committed to being in attendance. I'm sure we'll announce some of them probably at some point once we get a little bit closer. But yeah, it ranges from, very kind of like prolific scientists to like very kind of big funders, some funders who have just opened, say, like $100 million innovation funds recently, all the way up to, different like prominent meta scientists and things like that. So it'll be, it's really cool because I feel like PsyCon every year we think, oh man, that was an awesome event. I feel super energized. And then every year, the next year, we always top it with some new like exciting people. So this year, I think will be no different. So yeah, stay tuned for that. It will be huge.
Nice. So another year, another point of growth and bigger guests, more hype around the event. So we can be excited for that one. Yeah. So
and then Johnny, maybe really quick.
Yeah.
I know we have like, pretty decent sized audience here. So if anyone ever wants to like hop in too and ask questions, because I know we're like going through some of these topics, I don't want to lose kind of steam on a topic if there's people who want to chat about it. So if anyone's open to it, we're happy to answer questions too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here as a host, and if you request the microphone, then I will bring you up on stage and give you a spot to speak. So please feel free to raise your hands and contribute. I think that's a perfect segue also to the next topic here on the list. So Jeff, you have been talking with the community, and especially the non-scientific token holders were kind of requesting some different forms of communication that maybe make more clear what is our value proposition to a non-scientific, non-technical audience. And so you came up with like a slogan together. So maybe we could talk about this a little and also hear the voices from the community. I see here as a request already. So Jeff, can you introduce us to the slogan?
Yeah. So really the idea behind this was, as Johnny mentioned, so we wanted to have like a event or like a slogan or something that was like easily digestible, really bite-sized, that people can sort of rally behind, that doesn't require them to understand sort of the implications of peer review and what that unlocks and like what's the kind of scientific rationale for it. And so really the idea is we want to kind of signal what the funding feature is doing. It's a big part of ResearchHub. And yeah, again, it's going to be like, migrating the $1 trillion kind of research economy on chain or funding economy on chain. And so I think what this does is it signals to everybody that there's a giant addressable market in science, and funding is a huge part of that. And it's, I think, a little underappreciated. Even as scientists, you don't really quite know the scope of this because, people in the US think through like the lens of the US funding, and people in other countries think through their own funding, but DeSci unlocks sort of like a global funding venue. So, and then the other aspect of it is it's simple to understand that like there's this whole big addressable market that can be migrated on chain. And there could be better ways of sort of distributing that money with some of the tools that we have now. So that's the thinking behind it. And it seems like the community is rallying behind it pretty strongly as well too. So yeah, very, very exciting times too. And I'm sure Pat can kind of elaborate on sort of what the scope of that kind of economy looks like and what we're trying to do at ResearchHub to like bring it on some of these better rails.
So Jeff, for the funding feature, you want me to talk a little bit about that? Sorry.
Yeah. So like really behind like the idea of this, like, bringing in dollars of funding on chain to like ResearchHub, and like, maybe about the funding feature and like why we'd be able to snag some of that, big market and bring it on ResearchHub. Like why is it better?
Yeah, totally. So this all kind of goes back to the core of the issue that exists in science. Right now, the biggest problem is that the folks who have money to distribute to researchers, they don't really have like an objective way to tell who's going to be the best investment in their grant funding. So traditionally what's happened is folks use bibliometrics, citation-based metrics. This is like a grandfathered way that academics have used to sort of like assess the quality of any given research output or the researcher who creates it. So kind of what happens if you're a funder, two scientists apply to your funding opportunities, scientist A and scientist B. If scientist A publishes once a year and every time they publish, they get 10 citations on their work, compared to scientist B, who publishes twice a year and every time they publish, they get 20 citations on their work, the funder will assess those two scientists and most of the time give funding to scientist B, the person who's demonstrated that they're a prolific publisher. And when they do publish, other scientists learn from their work and cite it in their own papers. This makes a lot of sense and it works for a really long time. But over the past like 20 or 30 years, the job market has become more competitive in science. And also the internet has started to exist. And there's been a little bit of like big picture reflection within the scientific community on how to have the most success within your career. So the end result of that is that scientists have started to sort of tweak their research outputs to optimize for generating citations rather than generating high research. This is just like a independent action that folks do in order to just be able to survive within science, so that way they get their next grant. Unfortunately, highly cited science is not always the highest quality. There's actually been studies who have found that and this is kind of on the whole meta science, like big picture, but the more citations a given paper gets, the less likely it actually is to be able to be independently replicated. So unintentionally, funders have sort of collectively set up this incentive structure that ends up just wasting a lot of money. Folks have independently audited scientific literature and found that between 50 to 85% can't be reproduced. So basically, at a minimum, 50 to 85% of scientific funding is being spent exploring topics that can't be replicated, so are sort of untrustworthy. And at the end of the day, just waste a lot of the funders' money. For instance, if you're Susan G. Komen, which is a breast cancer nonprofit, if you're allocating capital in a way that causes 50 to 85% of the resulting experiments to be irreproducible, you're kind of just pouring like a lot of your money down the drain. So with ResearchHub, what we want to try and do is create a new infrastructure for funding science that basically helps funders allocate their capital in a way that creates incentives for higher quality research. Kind of two ways that we can go about this to provide like value to a scientific funder with this feature. One, we can reduce their admin costs. So the costs associated with sort of like actually creating an opportunity and giving out that money to a scientist. In general, these are kind of like broad strokes, but Susan G. Komen spends about 12% of their budget just administering grants. If you look at the NIH, which is obviously much, much, much larger, they spend about 6% of their budget administering grants. So this is a very large number when you look at the size of funding coming from the NSF or the NIH. So what we can do at ResearchHub is use the internet to reduce this administrative costs. Right now, we charge 9%. And this is at a very small volume where 7% goes to ResearchHub Inc. as revenue and 2% goes to the foundation, which will now be burnt. So over time, as we have more money flowing through this feature, we could even reduce that admin cost. But yeah, that's over time. So basically we can save funders money kind of on the front end of actually administering their grants. And then by using things like decentralized peer review, having feedback to improve the study, using a pre-registration as a form of a grant application, we can actually increase the reproducibility of the science at the end of the pipeline. So yeah, big picture is that, using the internet and decentralized peer review and financial incentives, we can create a tool that helps funders allocate their capital more efficiently and more effectively. So they save money on admin costs, and hopefully we can create a tool that will allow them to also create higher quality science than is reasonable to achieve within traditional grant giving structures. So that's sort of the big picture. And when you look at like the size of this market, it changes every year. But I remember when I was first looking at this, maybe in like 2017, 2018, it was like $1.3 trillion annually is spent on research and development. Just looking at the United States, it's something like 20 billion annually spent by like nonprofits funding research. The NSF, I want to say, is like between 15 to 20 billion. And then the NIH is around like 40 billion annually. So these are gigantic numbers. If we can just capture 1%, I think we'd have like a pretty successful company. So yeah, exciting times. Thanks for everybody's support.
Great, thank you, Pat, for summing it up here. Or Scott, I see you there with your hand. Yeah, let's move to you. Tell us what's on your mind.
Thanks, guys. Patrick, that was actually pretty interesting. Also, so in that scope, are we targeting, because I think bio is sort of having their AI agents, is that also going to be, I guess, a branch where ResearchHub can facilitate? If you could kind of just share a little bit on that, where would it be like agents sending out hypotheses and then peer reviewers would validate those? Is that something also that ResearchHub can facilitate or be kind of like a branch from also what you guys are doing?
Yeah, 100%. So I know there is some like really interesting work being done right now around AI agents that can actually generate new hypotheses. I know it's pretty early stage, definitely a future. Like I can see in, a couple of years, like these are going to be extremely common tools, for folks to help to generate new ideas within science. The way that we've been thinking about building Research Hub is like this sounds almost weird to say, but sort of like agnostic to if our users are bots or human. Like even in theory, like humans should be able to use LLM tools in ways that help to increase the quality of their own work. So yeah, I think in a perfect world, it's basically like any entity can come on to Research Hub and earn tokens for generating high quality content. That can be a human, could be a human like working with AIs, or, maybe in the future, it's just an independent AI. And our goal is to create an incentive structure that allows them to earn capital for creating scientific value. So 100%, we've even thought about like, if we build a prediction market feature on top of our funding feature where folks can bet on if results will support a hypothesis or not, that's pretty much like the perfect sort of battleground for artificial intelligence to come in, be able to understand an experiment, and make predictions on whether it'll work or not. So yeah, we want to be very compatible for kind of the future of how science will work. And I think that's obviously going to include, a lot of help from artificial intelligence. So definitely, Scott. And then the stuff that I was doing right now around the AI agents, I think is super fascinating. So, these technologies are like changing drastically. It feels like almost every like month or so. I remember when like ChatGPT, it doesn't feel like that long ago when ChatGPT first came out. Now, things have developed tremendously. So yeah, excited to see kind of what unfold over the next couple of years. And like if I had to bet on it, I bet, within 3 to 5 years, we're gonna have some pretty cool science getting done by artificial intelligence. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, Scott, you want to reply here? Okay, sure.
Yeah, no, that was pretty cool. That answered it. Also, I did have one thing when we were talking about the SciCon. Is that open to everyone? Because I think I seen the last event just kind of on YouTube. Is that open to the public or not? Because I was just wondering, like, if maybe it can be a thing, kind of like a governance thing, if it's not open up to the public, to where, if you have a certain tokens, you could join or something. Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, that's a really cool idea, Scott. Couple of things to answer. So one is it's not completely open to the public just because the size of the venue is like relatively small, and so we keep it as kind of like an invite only. That being said, we record it every year, and so we will have like kind of recordings and like stuff to put out on social media and YouTube for everyone at home to watch it. And what we did in the past, at least last year, was we hosted a raffle. And then had one person from the community that to like come in person, and we covered the cost of them to like attend. So it won't be completely open, but we might be able to do something like that again, where get maybe some of our more passionate community, or maybe we have some kind of like system of discerning who select for attending from the community.
Okay, great. Yeah, then I think Scott, this should be. Is your hand still up, or is this a bug? Do you still want to respond here?
Oh no, it must be a bug because I was just replying with that.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
No, but thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Interesting AI question here. And yeah, I think we can move on. So before we were talking about AI and SciCon, Pat explained the funding feature and basically the whole like vision for that. And linking to this, recently we closed 2 of, I think, the biggest proposals that ResearchHub has funded so far. So one was Dr. Saidan's Wim Hof breathing study, where I think the funding amount was 276,000. And then we closed an energy healing proposal from Dr. Richard Harris, where the funding amount was like 250,000. So Jeff or Pat, can you maybe say a few things about this? How do you feel about these proposals being closed? How was the process? And maybe other things that you think you can add here.
I don't know if I have like a tremendous amount to add. Actually, I guess like my overall thoughts are, one, it's awesome. We got some very high quality scientists to submit projects. They got funded on ResearchHub and they were pretty satisfied with the process. So I know Fidel is really happy with the work that we're doing with him and wants to do another couple fundraisers with us. So we're currently collaborating with him on that. I know John from DMT Quest is also pretty stoked about the whole thing. So yeah, I think it's like, I think we've had this one almost funded for a while now, so good to have it closed out. And I think in general, like it seems like our first wave of projects getting funded here worked well. So hopefully we'll be able to take that momentum and channel it into a couple more rounds here.
Great. Anything to add, Jeff? Yep.
Yeah, just really quickly, and then I think Tyler's probably got a lot of text because he's been sort of interacting with them a lot. But I think the one thing is, I guess these are two like pretty respectable researchers in their like kind of own designated fields, and like the like work that they're doing are on topics and fields that are, I think, like relatable to a lot of people. But the cool thing about them is they've got sort of like the scientific rigor behind it to sort of give it a lot of like validation and credibility. So Dr. Zidane is at UC San Diego. He's a professor over there doing the studies on like Wim Hof breathing, and they're doing checking like lymphatic clearance in like MRI. And then Dr. Harris, I think, is like an endowed professor at UCI, also doing some exciting work. And so just wanted to kind of flag that like these are pretty prominent researchers who are looking for like alternative venues of getting funding, and they went and tried to get that at ResearchHub and got their work funded. And so it's really exciting, and hopefully a lot quicker than they traditionally would. So yeah, I just want to kind of it feels very like exciting and amazing to have like prominent researchers kind of take a shot on ResearchHub, and then for us and the rest of the community and for people like DMT Quest to like actually put the funds behind it and see the funding through, and to make sure they had a good experience. And also a shout out to our peer reviewers who helped decentralized peer review the proposals, and then also have the authors like Dr. Zidane actually implement the changes from the reviewers and go back and forth in the public discourse about things that could have been changed, and then updating the actual proposal. It's stuff you don't see in traditional academia at all. So just wanted to say it's been a cool experience.
Yeah, I can add a little bit too. And like Jeff was saying, these are very legit professors. Like Fadel Zaidan has 10,000 citations. He's put out all these wonderful papers about mental health and fMRI. And Rick Harris has 17,000 citations. So super respected researcher who wanted to try an interesting project. And these two specifically were ones that would have a little bit of difficulty getting funded through traditional things like the NIH or the NSF. So Rick's, for example, and I'm probably going to botch this, so sorry, Rick, if you're listening. But essentially, there was a person in California who mentioned they might be able to do some healing, which is a very difficult topic to study. And they were reporting a lot of like positive interactions with the people, that basically subjects of this person. So Rick thought it'd be very interesting to take this person and put them in a controlled study where the subjects would be in an fMRI scanner so we could see what's happening. All of the changes would be double blinded. So quote unquote healers and sham healers would be outside of the MRI while this process was being taken. Then they'd record all the results and then basically see if there's any statistical significance to whether these healers are any different from a sham healer. So trying to bring like true academic rigor in science to a really cool and interesting problem that definitely would not have been passable for like an NIH grant. So that's happening live. And then also Fadel Zaidan he's taking super traditional fMRI methods for looking at blood flow and cerebral spinal fluid flow in the brain. And these are really promising for treatment of Alzheimer's disease. Basically, he studied the lymphatic system, which is like this micro-scale clearance system in the brain that's super poorly understood, but could be a really good target for Alzheimer's disease treatment. And so he's looking at how breath work changes the clearance of that system. So in sleep, you typically clear the brain out, wipes out all the waste products, but also in breathing. So Fadel thought it would be awesome to take the Wim Hof method, which is like a very specific style of breathing, and apply it to the lymphatic system. So have subject breathing technique in the MRI system, and then use state-of-the-art methods to basically see how much is the brain being cleaned when you're doing a Wim Hof breathing as opposed to no breathing or regular breathing that's not as structured. So super cool studies that actually could have very good clinical outcomes if they're correct. And what they get out of ResearchHub is, yes, funding for something that's not traditionally fundable, but also feedback. Both of these guys, even though they're super respected professors, they don't have always the perfect context of every detail in the field. So we brought in experts from both sides, like the MRI study side, and then also kind of this consciousness study side. And they gave feedback that were both basically put into the studies to improve them. So not only were they funded, but they also got feedback of how to improve the studies. And last thing is like, it's really cool to do this ahead of time. Usually peer review comes years later after the experiments are started. And that kind of stinks because you've already done everything. And then basically the peer reviewers are like, oh, hey, it would have been cool if you did this thing, but it's already years past. So in our case, we're getting peer review before the studies even happen. And so now they can make these changes, have a really compelling story, and engage the audience before anything's even done. So yeah, I'll stop there, but I could talk a while about it. I think it's a really cool way of funding science.
Thank you, Tyler, for all this color that you put here on these two proposals and the people behind them. Also then on what they get out of it. So yeah, that was the funding feature and two examples of like big funding proposals that have been closed. So with that being said, Srini, I see you requested the mic, so tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah, Thanks for putting that. I'm not a science fellow. I'm a techie guy who is looking out at the cool stuff that coming in, especially on Coinbase space. The research coin came to my limelight that it's backed by CEO of Coinbase and other cool stuff that they are bringing into that technology with science. That's cool stuff. But I do also have a mind on like there is a conflict of interest of being a CEO for two companies. That is the one thing. How do you guys want to make it clear to the community? That's point number one. And second one is that the burn of tokens. So and emission of the tokens. Do you have any clear path that you can make it clear to the community? And the third one, I had the last one, expansion of token for other exchanges so that you will have more liquidity for consumers.
Yeah, maybe I can touch on the last two. So I can't really speak on kind of any conversations with other exchanges. So that was the third point. The second point is I'd encourage people to go take a look at like the Gitbook docs. So these are linked specifically in researchhub.com. You'll find them in like a kind of doc section on I think the bottom left of the left sidebar. And you can go take a look and kind of see all the information around like the token and like what the emissions are and things like that. If you guys have any feedback regarding those, we actually have been engaging. The community has been giving us feedback on how to like elaborate on some of the kind of making sure everything's fully kind of understandable and transparent that's within the docs. So we encourage feedback for all of that too. And then probably kind of won't speak on behalf of the first one there because again, it's not sort of, us in particular who is kind of, involved in some of that. So yeah, we'll probably pass for that first one.
What I would say for the first one is that we're a United States company and there's tremendous regulation ensuring that like there aren't conflicts of interest within companies owned by the same person. So this is and there's tons of precautions that have been put into place for years in the US.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe to elaborate too, you can see a post that Brian made, regarding that, where he had a Medium article about 4 years ago, and also kind of walked through some of the kind of ways to mitigate some of the proposed, those conflicts of interest. So I'd encourage you to take a look at some of Brian's more recent tweets about the topic.
Thank you. I'm good.
Great. Thank you, Srini, and thank you, Pat and Jeff, for these answers. Let's move on to the next agenda point here. I have here some updates about some features. So first, I think we should start talking about the referral feature that's kind of linked to the funding feature, and we can maybe have an elaboration of what came out there and what people can do with it. So all of you guys are qualified to talk about. Tyler, Jeff, anybody want to speak for it first?
Yeah, happy to take this one. So interesting. One of the biggest challenges that we have building ResearchHub is that, we're giving out financial value on the internet. So, there are a lot of folks on the internet who are really smart and really motivated in order to earn financial value. I would even say the majority of folks don't really care about science or like ResearchHub's bigger picture mission and view ResearchHub as sort of like an opportunity to benefit their own financial situation more than an opportunity to like earn value for contributing to science. So every feature that we make, we have to be very careful about how we design it to ensure that the folks receiving the financial value are the ones who are actually creating the value for the scientific community. This is way easier said than done. And I'm just always like genuinely impressed by some of the creativity and motivation of folks on the internet who will do like, extremely like impressive things in order to sort of like skirt the incentives that we're trying to set up. So yeah, we have this funding feature. And it's working. The early stages are working. We have a couple funders who want to support projects in the open. We have great scientists who are submitting proposals. One of the ways that we met our first major funder, DMT Quest, was through a scientist that we had funded named Guy Fincham. Essentially, like our community maybe a year ago had thrown together around $50,000 to support Guy in his breathwork studies at the University of Sussex. And so a few months ago, Guy was looking to raise more money for his research. And he posted a tweet about the funding opportunity on ResearchHub. One of his followers was DMT Quest. DMT Quest, interacts with Guy and says, "Hey, I'd love to help fund this." And then, things have progressed from there to the point where DMT Quest is really excited about what we're doing and wants to fund more projects on ResearchHub. We also heard feedback from DMT Quest that he would want to refer other funders, and financial value always helps to grease the wheels there. So kind of in an attempt to recreate this interaction that helped to bring us our first funder, we were thinking it would make sense to create a referral feature where folks who were trying to raise money on ResearchHub would be able to tap their own networks to solicit donations from folks who are interested in the work that they had been doing. So we're thinking about building a referral feature. we'd also had on our minds for a while now and had gotten some feedback from folks that like a referral feature would be maybe the one thing we're missing to get to organic growth week over week. So with this being said, most of the time when we've done referral features in the past, they end up sort of being taken advantage of by folks who are more financially motivated than scientifically motivated. So we wanted this one in a way where the incentives were required to be basically that there's no way to take advantage of it to benefit yourself in a personal financial, sense. That the only way to receive value here would be in a way that someone who wanted to fund science would feel it's valuable. So what we did is we created a version of ResearchCoin that can be used as a reward within a funding feature that is required to be spent on the funding feature. So like, if you're trying to sign up for PayPal, like they'll have a referral feature often where like you can invite your friends. And if your friends deposit $100, then you get $50. And that $50 you can do whatever you want with. You can withdraw it, you can go spend it on dinner, whatever you want to do. The referral feature that we created, the way it works is if someone like Guy Fincham shares a link on his social media and attracts someone like DMT to donate $1 million on ResearchHub, then both Guy Fincham and DMT Quest, so the referrer and the referee, would earn 10% of whatever the referee donates over the next 6 months. So in this scenario, both Guy Fincham and DMT Quest would earn $100,000 worth of ResearchCoin, but they wouldn't be able to withdraw that research, their personal wallets. It would be required to be spent on the funding feature. So essentially creating rewards, referral rewards for folks. And the reward is not like a personal financial benefit, but a benefit if you want to fund new scientific projects. So that's sort of the big picture idea, is to help like folks who are interested in funding science network and earn rewards for doing so on ResearchHub. So yeah, that's the big picture. Curious what folks think.
Cool.
So I guess one last thing to throw out here too, and this is where like I guess there is opportunity for personal financial benefit. Since we have 2% of the tokens being burned now, assuming this passes in a couple of hours, this means that 2% of the total volume flowing through the funding feature will be removed from circulation. So like in theory, I'm not 100% sure if this will happen or not, but hopefully there's a financial incentive for our community to try and bring new funders into ResearchHub, because the more funding that's flowing through that feature, the more revenue generated by ResearchHub Inc. so we can survive for longer, and then also more generated ResearchHub Foundation, which is then sent to a burn address. So yeah, hopefully the more money flowing to this funding feature, everyone should benefit.
Nice. Okay, so to sum it up, for every funder that I invite, me and the funder get 10% of the amount funded when the proposal closes, and then I can spend this on more science, so to say.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. So yeah, for everyone in the audience, I think right now you can find the funding feature if you go to your ResearchHub, and then on your profile there's you'll find the funding. If you click on your profile item on your profile, you will find the referral feature, and you can get your own link and invite people for funding, so you get to fund more cool science. Then we have a couple of let's say teasers or new products that are in the pipe, and maybe developments that are not really new products in themselves, but like a connection, a stringing together of different products. I'm thinking here about, first of all, the new feed. So maybe you can give a little teaser about what the new feed entails and what you guys are working towards there.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do this. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool. So Brian is very excited about this feature. We've started to generate some revenue around the funding feature, and it seems like pretty promising that we'll be able to get to break even here in the next year or so. With that being said, despite the fact that our revenue is growing, our weekly active contributors are pretty flat, or verified weekly active contributors, so non-spammers. And so Brian, I think very wisely, believes that even if we're able to sort of generate revenue at the bottom of our funnel, so folks who are really into ResearchHub, like Guy Fincham and DMT Quest, they get it, they know us, they see the vision, they're willing to, participate financially, like in the product, because they're bought in. But currently, our top of funnel is not great. So folks who come to ResearchHub for the first time, there's not a lot of value for them within the first, obvious value within the first minute or so using the website. And that's pretty critical in order to just retain users in general, in the modern day age of 30-second TikTok videos. So what we've decided to do over the next couple of months is we focus on the homepage of ResearchHub and try and create value for both scientists and non-scientists to the point where it makes sense for them to come back every day. The theory here is if we're able to increase the top of the funnel and then make research a more sticky product, essentially we'll create more value for funders and be able to generate more revenue long term. So the whole company is much, much, much healthier if we're able to have a wide top of funnel that retains users. So what we're thinking is we want to create a social feed where scientists can easily discover the latest preprints in their field. So having like a machine learning based recommendation algorithm where we can understand a scientist's preferences and make sure that they see the content that's relevant to them in careers. In addition to that, we'll also allow users to follow other scientists. So like, if I'm a big fan of Jeff's work, I can follow him on ResearchHub, even if he's not on ResearchHub, and to have a feed of content coming from him, in real time as he publishes papers, peer reviews, things of that sort. And then finally, we'll have ResearchHub native content mixed into this feed. So like if I'm following Jeff, because I'm a big fan of his neuroscience work, and Tyler actually does similar work, but just posted a proposal on ResearchHub, even though I don't follow Tyler, I could have his content in my feed because it's probably going to be exciting to me and I might want to support it. So yeah, that's the big picture. Is we're going to spend probably the next 2 or 3 months making the homepage on ResearchHub provide value to the average scientific user, so that way they'll come back every day. And we're thinking that over time, that'll basically just provide, a machine where a certain percentage of those folks are being converted to paid users, either by the bounty feature or the funding feature. Yeah, so that's the high level. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Pat, for explaining not only the feature, but also the reasoning that went into it from like Brian, you and the team here to really increase the top of the funnel and basically provide value in the first few seconds of interaction. I'd be curious if there are any questions from the audience, or maybe Jeff and Tyler want to add some color here, some context that I don't have on my radar. I see there's Scott requested the microphone, so let's give it up for Scott.
And then
he can go.
Maybe one thing I can add while Scott's coming up here is, scientists are discovering papers in all different ways. I think post-publication articles are a little bit easier to discover. People follow like Nature, Neuroscience, or very specific journals that like give you post-publication articles, and they kind of send you emails and all this stuff. I think what's becoming really hard for scientists is the discovery specifically around preprints. So the number of preprints that are getting published like month over month and year over year is like skyrocketing. And it's really hard to like keep up with the outputs of that. And bioRxiv categorizes things in like sort of large buckets like neuroscience or immunology. But as scientists, we know that it's definitely way more granular than that. So I'm really excited for this because it helps without having to do these big heavy actions like peer review or big heavy actions like publish a whole proposal, can come to ResearchHub and like just have stuff landing in front of them when they get there. And they'll just land in front of them with all the right kind of content they want to see curated for them. And I don't think there's a great place where scientists at scale are doing something like that. So I think it really solves a problem for kind of the max inflow of info that's coming into a scientist these days.
Nice. So Scott, now it's your turn to speak.
Yeah, this kind of just crossed my mind. I haven't thought of any examples, but could there be like a feature, almost like a Google feature on ResearchHub? Like, let's say if you were conversating with someone about a topic and you wanted to, just like verify things on ResearchHub, or, like if you and a buddy were talking about something, could you tell them to go look at the data on ResearchHub? Would that be, something that would be possible where people can, you can appoint people to say, well, here I found this on ResearchHub and it's already peer reviewed, because I guess sometimes normal people, they'll Google stuff and you go to all these different sites, all that. Would that be something that ResearchHub can assist?
I love the idea. I think we should definitely have something like this eventually. The two places my head goes when you say this feature, because I actually do, it's like the bar argument, right? Like,
exactly.
I could totally see it. So yeah, basically the two ways I think about this, one, and this is not the ideal option. So we have the bounty feature currently. Like in theory, these folks could if they had research going, create a bounty for an expert to come in and help to answer the question. That's not perfect because, you can't settle your bar argument. You have to wait a week. So definitely not perfect. Have you ever seen Consensus? There's this app that's sort of like it's not ChatGPT. It's basically like a very good scientific search engine using LLMs as an interface. So you could say like, hey, does increasing, glucose in my diet when I have cancer, is that healthy or not healthy? And it'll search through literature and try and give you like a summary, in like a perplexity style interface. So I think that would be very cool. And I think LLMs are going to be very easy to build with, just increasing like exponentially easier over time. So I think it makes infinite sense for us to eventually have like a similar feature, where you can search on ResearchHub based on all the content within ResearchHub and all the content we can leverage, scientific literature outside of ResearchHub. The question around this is like, do we make our content proprietary so that way our chat interface is the best chat interface? Because I think there is an opportunity there, because we could essentially, incentivize scientists to create content and have a better training data set than anyone else. So I think there is like a potential business model there that could be very cool. My gut feeling is it's sort of like outside of our mission a bit, and like in a perfect world, we could just create that content so it's open, so anyone, could create an LLM on top of our content, to help to answer questions, and maybe somebody else can do it better than we can. But that's a very long-winded way of saying that we should 100% have this feature eventually, because hopefully it'll be very easy to build and provide value for folks. But I think like in a perfect world, we also wouldn't want to restrict any of the content. So that way anyone else can also do it and maybe build something better than us and make science accelerate faster in theory.
That would be great. If anyone knows how to build a mini app, that would be awesome in Farcaster.
We could actually probably do something like this in the short term. Let me think about this a bit, Scott, and get back to you, because that would be so cool on Farcaster. If you could just ask a question and it was ResearchHub branded, that would be very, very cool.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, one thing to add here, Pat, is Scott Nelson actually was dabbling with creating a mini app for ResearchHub already. So maybe we can engage him to see if he made like good headway on that, and then if he can like sort of mold it what you guys talked about right now.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Okay, very cool. So an experiment around that would certainly be interesting to see. I think that was the half of the new feature. There's another thing that is kind of something that we can already tease. So Jeff, you talked to me about this, the flow from pre-registration all the way to publication, like basically from funding your proposal to actual publication. You're working on something there. Can you maybe give us a teaser?
Yeah, so we have the luxury of having like a bunch of things on ResearchHub. So we have a funding feature. We also have the ability for people to publish, preprints natively. We built the ability for people to publish, more formally into the ResearchHub journal. We have a bounty system where people can incentivize peer review and all different kinds of things. And one of the things I'd always been excited for with ResearchHub since I joined like 3.5 years ago was, I always felt the value prop of research strengthened tremendously once a lot of these features are like firing on all cylinders together. And now that we're getting to a place where it's like getting closer to that reality, you could start doing things that other venues can't really do because, bioRxiv just does preprints and like, NSF just does funding. And yeah, maybe there's a place to like, go to ResearchGate to discuss stuff. So because these are all like disparate things, it's hard to like create like a cool threaded kind of ecosystem. But one thing I'm really excited about is, talked about this idea of pre-registering proposals to get funding. So right now our funding feature as a researcher, if you want to get the funding, you got to pre-register your proposal, make sure the details are there, that they're outlined clearly and all that jazz. So these are like they're like on their way to like full-fledged bona fide like study protocols that you could publish. So one thing that's really exciting here is this like ability to like take the pre-registration and migrate that into like a full-fledged registered report to be formally published in the ResearchHub journal. So we're talking now with someone who's working with us, Michael Markey, on like what's the like best way and all the details and logistics of having authors who put in the work to pre-register their proposal, write a proposal to get funding. Well, they're already 70 to 80% of the way there. We want to make it such that there's like a venue or a path for them to be able to go the rest of the 20% of the way so they can publish that formally into the ResearchHub journal. And then have the ResearchHub journal, be a place where these study protocols or these pre-registered reports or registered reports can actually have a home and be kind of documented as a formal publication, where, in a lot of places, this isn't such the case. So yeah, that's the gist of it. And it's kind of this ability now to like start threading different things between feature sets on ResearchHub that I personally find to be really exciting.
Nice. So, and to like dumb it down, it's basically an end-to-end process from like you publish your idea, you get it funded, and then you also finally publish the actual results. That gives you full publication fund. So a whole research project.
No, actually a little differently. So what it is you put out a proposal and you can get that funded. Then you can take that proposal that you created, tighten it up a little bit, and then publish the proposal as a publication, which would go in as a registered report, which is sort of outlining all of the intentions and the details of how you want to do it for when you start your actual studies. Then you would go and execute the experiments to do the work you proposed you were going to do. Then once you've created kind of all the data from that, then you can publish that as like a kind of a stage 2 or kind of a connection of the first publication you had, saying, hey, I intended to do these things, and here are the results of what I actually did and the outputs of those things. And so you can sort of get 2 publications out of it, one at the front end and then one at the back end. So yeah, it's sort of a little bit different and unique, but really exciting.
Nice. Thank you, Jeff. So then we have only 2 points left here, and we have just about on time. So let's try to like go through them quickly. So the first one is ResearchHub will attend DeSci Boston. Somebody will represent us there. Any comments here?
No, pretty much just that. I think Tyler here will be heading out to DeSci Boston to rep.
Nice. Thank you, Tyler, for doing that. Tyler, you want to say something here? Yeah.
No, just confirming. I'll be there. So looking forward to seeing anybody too that'll be there too.
Cool. And then the last update here is ResearchHub is joining the Meta Science Alliance. I think this warrants a little bit of an explanation what that alliance is. And I think we can end it on that.
Yeah, just very quickly, there was a big conference called Metascience 2025. This happened a couple months ago in the UK. A lot of really big funders and a bunch of meta scientists, and this one, it kept growing year over year, which is really cool. And part of that Center for Open Science is allowing or kind of setting up this Meta Science Alliance. And so it's just a way where like organizations or individuals can sort of signal their backing of like a lot of these meta science principles. So just a quick one that, we'll be joining that alliance and really kind of planting our flag in there with a bunch of other people that, hey, meta science and improvements in how the science is conducted and operated is definitely an important piece of the puzzle to improve overall science.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Anybody has any last words?
Just thanks, everybody. It's been a long journey so far, but we're just at the beginning. There's like, I haven't been more excited to be working on ResearchHub than like this week. So yeah, it should be a lot of cool stuff over the next couple of years, and excited, to continue on this journey with you all. Thanks so much for the support. And then more feedback is always good. So feel free to hop in our Discord, and let us know if there's anything we can improve. Also, just want to comment on, I feel like the community in the last like month and a half or 2 months has really taken the reins on a couple things, and like it's just beautiful to see from my perspective. So anything we could do to help empower you folks more, to help to grow ResearchHub, like please let us know. Me and Jeff, would love to help facilitate that. So yeah, big time compliments, to the folks leading the charge there. And yeah, just again, very, very excited to be working on this. And I think we got some cool things around the corner. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Pat. Couldn't have closed the space in any better way. So I'll end it here. See you all in the next X Space.
Bye, everyone.